Thanks for staying with us. Now, Nigerians in general and the nation's security agencies in particular will not forget in a hurry the violent twist that characterized the EndSARS protest last October, in which 22 policemen were killed across the country, scores injured, and several others left in life-threatening conditions by rampaging hoodlums that hijacked a peaceful protest. Now, the Human Rights Watch has lamented the failure of the federal government to hold accountable security operatives who brutalized and killed EndSARS protesters in October 2020. This international human rights group says that the victims are still awaiting justice a year after security forces violently suppressed protests calling for an end to police brutality in Nigeria. Now, just a few hours ago, as mentioned in my news, the federal government of Nigeria has claimed that there is no evidence to show that any protester died. This was said by the Minister for Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. It was Buckminster Fuller who said, and I quote, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." So what's the new thing that must be built, and what lessons have we learned from all of these, and what's the way forward? Now, please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. So I'll bring in Dovoe and Uki in a minute, but I just wanted to hear quick thoughts, Uti and Milola. You know, we can't keep repeating the same thing. They call it insanity and expect a different result. What happened in 2020, October 20th, happened today. It's just that it was not in the same magnitude because people still went out, they protested, and some people were bundled into Black Maria, pepper spray, and all of that. The same transaction, the same response, you know, the same action, the same response. You know, so what exactly should be like a way forward, or what should we be doing right, or what are the lessons that we are not learning from all of this? Uti, you want to quickly come in?
Protests don't work. Simple.
Protests don't work.
They don't. If the response is a blatant show of force to quell your
agitations,
do the same thing over and over again and get the same result. So it doesn't work. Do we change tack? Yes. If the minister can come out a year later and say nobody died, I mean, just change strategy. That's it. When I was listening to the radio this morning, and they started out saying, oh, the cars, everybody was in their cars and it was pretty well organized. Then the next thing they said there were people on foot, and then all hell broke loose. I don't know, you know, these people, you're not cats, you don't have 9 lives. If one way doesn't work, and we've realized that our government, and I was very vocal about this last year, and maybe that's why I'm so silent today, because I'm like, I could have said, I told you so. I could have, but here we are, 1 year later. What has truly changed? And I feel that, for me, that's where the challenge is with this country. We make a lot of noise. The government knows what to dangle, how long to wait. If you wait long enough, everybody will forget. We're easily distracted. We talk a lot and there's no action. Do you remember after this whole thing happened, the Constitution people were like, learn the Constitution, reform the Constitution, restructure. Everybody was what? Here we are, 1 year later. And I wish I could say it was different. Out of the 29 panels that were set up, only Lagos State apparently has paid money to some of the victims. So,
and in fact, I hear that the victims that Lagos State paid, they are not actually victims of the Lekki shooting per se.
Well, at least they've even paid somebody from
maybe
the panels.
Maybe police brutality will not
from the panels that they've seen.
Let me hear your thoughts, Milola, quickly.
I believe that it was not going to get fixed with 1 or 2 protests. I believe protests can work. We just need to do enough of it. Definitely there's need for re-strategizing, and there's a method to our madness. But should we stop protesting because it appeared that the government would continue to shut us down with force and police?
Yeah.
I think we cannot respond to that because that's the anticipated, expected reaction. We need to still be able to lend our voices and protest. We've not done enough of protesting in this country. Now, if everybody takes the angle of it's not going to work and we shut down, what platform do we really have to communicate to government? Other than coming out on the streets, there is really nothing.
Nothing. Right?
You can't find yourself. You
through,
can.
though.
Yes,
No,
there is need for us to have a strategy to protesting.
Yeah, so that's
but
the
that we will
point.
not protest, I think, is not a good way to go about it, because whether we realize it or not, we may not be able to measure the outcome of that last year protest. But trust me, it
There
was
was
relatively
something-
successful.
yeah, something happened.
It did
Okay.
lend a lot of people. It did make people understand that. I really was thrilled by the level of enthusiasm people put out during the protest. But over time, it went flatline because of the lack of strategy. That is the angle we need to put to it going forward. I do not think we should just shut up and say, oh,
We shouldn't protest.
Yeah, we should.
All right, so let me
It's not
bring in
about
our
shutting
guest.
up, though, but we shall get to
Let
that.
me, let me bring in our guest. Now, Uki Nebodare is the MD of Edo Jobs, Edo State Skills Development Agency. You can call it Edo Jobs. Uki never shies away from lending her voice when it comes to issues of national concern, and she's joined us live from Benin City. Thank you, Uki, for joining us. Then we have Dovoe Okorie. He is a public analyst, public affairs analyst. He's no stranger to us on Ways. He's a friend of the house, constantly lending his voice as well on radio every morning on issues as it appears on the front pages of our dailies. And he's joining live with us in studio. Thank you so much, Dovoe, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so let me go. Let me give the lady the honor as ladies first, But okay, thank you so much. Abota, how is Benin?
Pleasure to be here.
In fact, interesting
Very
thing is,
fine.
I actually saw a bit of clips of people protesting in Benin City. I saw the police there. Nobody was being harassed and anything. So do you want to just give us a little bit of background of what happened today as the memorial of the event that happened in October 2020?
Okay, yeah. Well, Benin was relatively peaceful. As you know, even this time last year when the protests were on, the state government was very much with the protesters in terms of, okay, just keep it peaceful. We even had days when the deputy governor marched with the protesters, because we're not even looking at this from a perspective of government against the people. It's about bad governance. We're not looking at it. It was not something we felt should be used for a political statement. It's just, if something is wrong, it is wrong. So I'm very sure that if any police officer today had tried to harass any of the protesters, they would have definitely had to answer for it. And the message has been very clear in Edo State. So we didn't really have issues of people being harassed by the police at all.
Okay, let me come to you, Dovoe, then I'll let the ladies come in. So let's just jump right into the conversation. Today is 2021. October 20, exactly 1 year after the world witnessed, what we call a massacre. Yeah, that a lot of people are actually still denying, and the Minister for Information has just come out to say nobody died on that day.
Federal government.
The federal government. Well, through the Minister for Information. I just like, to put it out there that he's the one saying it, So tell us, assessing 2020 up until 2021, what is your candid opinion about this EndSARS protest, analyzing it in what has just happened between what we witnessed last year and today, what happened today? Do you see that, did you see any form of change in whatever it was that was even the cause for the fight in the first place?
Well, it's been 365 days. And this time last year, if you remember, bullets were flying, and
It was raining.
we were hearing, stay down, keep your flags up, keep your flags up. It's an excruciating story and memory for those who were part of it, both locally and because it was being streamed on some platforms in the diaspora. And if you remember, some who were courageous enough to stay online even while the shooting was going on. And the next day, it followed with government denials and reversals from one position to the other. And then the billion-dollar question, who gave the order, which till date hasn't been answered. Okay? Now, in my candid opinion, I like to just state a few facts about what happened and then the opinion, because there's been an aggressive push by different schools of thought to rewrite what really happened. And what was meant to be an agitation to end police brutality with the reform of the SARS units, in some respects became an agitation for government overhaul after the protest, in quotes, was hijacked, all right, by both known and unknown sources, but also government interference, which then led to a bloody attack on that 20th, which is what became the memorial. And after that, violence erupted around the country as a, how do I call it, boomerang. And then from that, it now moved into the social effect of plundering of the palliative warehouses, the businesses, etc. And sometimes people just write it off and say EndSARS was just a plot by some political forces, some, how do you call them, disgruntled elements to actually change government. That's not what happened. We all know it. And we must always stick to the truth that the youths of this nation, for the first time in a long time, came together, rose above their differences. It wasn't about ethnic or religious differences or social strata. They literally gave the best of themselves, right? They fed themselves. They communicated with themselves. They helped each other in terms of health. They even protected themselves from those who were wounded. And at the end of the day, what we saw was government attempt to crush this. That was the truth. Now, did we get the right results at the end of the day? I don't think we have, because what just happened today was a repeat. When you fail an exam, what do? You repeat. What happens? We failed again. Why? As you mentioned, the strategy wasn't completely there, and that's what I'm after. And that's what this whole discussion was about. If we don't stick to the truth and then see how we can take different steps to be able to get a different result. Remember, protest, in answering your question, is not wrong. It does work, but it is an ingredient in the baking of the cake of reformation and justice that we are all looking for as a better nation. Every Nigerian knows what he wants, okay? That we're unsatisfied does not mean we cannot get there. But it doesn't stop with the protest. Many things should have happened in between last year and now to be able to bring the fruition of what the youths dearly sought after. So in my candid opinion, there's homework to be done. After your teacher teaches you in class, you have to go back and do your homework. One of our best boxers lost recently, right? Now, for him to win again, what is required? He needs to go back into training. What do we need to do as youths? Does that conversation that we had during the EndSARS period, should it have ended just like that? Shouldn't the youth still be talking to themselves? Shouldn't we be engaging government beyond the tribunals? Shouldn't the government be engaging the youth from a proactive level? Do they have to wait until there's a protest before they start to say, no, you cannot have? What are the fundamental issues here? Our rights were taken from us. This is tyranny. Remember, this is a democracy. Federal Republic of Nigeria, not federal, how do you call it? A dictatorial state of Nigeria. No, this is a democracy. So you get to speak, I get this freedom of expression, this freedom of association, this freedom of beliefs. These are all constitutional rights that you and me as citizens are entitled to. How much more the greatest constituency in this country? The youths make up 75%. That is 3/4. So for every 4 Nigerians, 3 fall into the youth category. And it's the majority that is being treated like a minority. There are issues here. There are things that we really need to address. How do a few people lord it over the greater norm? So there's something wrong with how the youths have gone about it that has not given them the results. However, we will do it. We must do it. And that's part of what we can say a bit about within this conversation.
Okay, so before we just continue the conversation, let's just go on a very short break to pay our bills. We'll be right back so that we can just continue the conversation and get that out of the way. Stay with us. So thank you for staying with us. We just tuned in. We're having an interesting chat with Dovoe and Okorie, reviewing October 20th, 2020. Please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. Uti, over to you. Are you going to Okorie?
I think I'll go to Okorie because Milola has said something. I was going to respond, and then Dovoe has added some clarity to it. So why I wouldn't say this is a question for Okorie, but I want to pull in what Okorie did last year. Because I remember her video was the first video I saw where I said, finally, somebody's speaking sense. Because we went from a 5-point agenda to a 7-point agenda, and it had this snowball effect of us asking for different things and nobody being quite sure. I mean, the strategy was to be, what's the word now, decentralized. So everybody was everywhere. But I remember in Okie's video, her saying, guys, don't lose focus. Your 5 was clear. Let's shoot for 5 and let's get it. Don't start to water it down to add different things.
Ones.
So I would just like to hear 1 year down the line what her thoughts are. Dovoe has already shared for us what he thinks. I'd very much like to hear what she thinks, given that she was, my thoughts were very much in line with hers.
Thank you. I think it's really an emotional day, when Dovoe said this time last year, this time I said we were in tears, we were panicking, we were screaming. And I would say that I think maybe we've made a little progress, but we have not made enough progress. He already said some of the things I was saying last year that, look, guys, let's be focused. Let's focus on some of the things I said, let's focus on the agenda and let's push it through now that we have gotten attention. I also said that we need to be able to identify our allies. I think that's been a big issue for the movement. You just find like everybody painted with the same brush. Oh, all the people above maybe 40, they are all the same. So when somebody comes and tries to say, look guys, let's do it this way, in our time this was what we did wrong, everybody's like, no, your generation has failed us, shut up. And I posted something recently about cancel culture.
Like I was coming to that.
Yes. Oh, we don't want to do October 1st. Let's do October 2020. Listen, guys, if we don't learn from people who have done things like this before, how are we going to deliver Nigeria? How are we going to deliver this country? Because somehow in independence, Africans who were all at that point either enslaved or at least being lorded over by some other people came together and we got independence. How did they do it? I'm sure they had allies. And you know what? They are actually allies of this movement in government. But we as people that are protesting have to be able to know who those people are, identify with them. Okay, they might not be able to come out openly and say that they're allies for so many reasons, because if they come out, maybe they'll get blacklisted, and then even the small power that is to help us might be taken away from them. But we have to be able to identify them somehow. You can't say trust nobody. We can't be uncoordinated. It was good at the beginning when it was everybody starting on their own, but at some point we have to come together. Then I think one major thing that we would have used to gain a lot of power that we have not maximized as much as we should is being actively involved in politics. And we don't have to be the politicians. Register to vote. People say things like, I think we are falling for so many conspiracy theories that were given to us by politicians. Oh, your vote doesn't count. If your vote doesn't count, do you know how many billions they spend buying rappers, buying bread, giving 5,000 naira to people just so that they can vote? That tells you that your vote is so powerful. But we have from my side, when INEC opened up the voter registration, I tried to do some sensitization on my page, like, okay, guys, this is our chance. Let's register. But I got so many comments like, oh, it doesn't matter. What do they care? It's not important. You can't make a difference. Look, like you said, protesting is just one ingredient. At the end of the day, what these people care about is how they can remain in power. And what keeps you in power is the vote. If you are not registering to vote, you are just making life easy for them. They understand the people that are already registered. See, and let me tell you, we think these people are not intelligent or they're just some old men somewhere. They have analysts, they have gone over the data. They know that those of us that are agitating are not the same people that are going to vote, so they can afford to ignore. They can afford to ignore us. So what are we doing that they will see the voter register changing and be like, these guys are not joking. Oh, we better figure out what to do. We better figure out how to engage them. We better figure out how to please them. At this point, we don't matter as much as we think, because at the end of the day, when it comes to where our power is, which is in the election process, we're still too malleable as Nigerians. So those of us who know better, we need to get involved. And I will say it, and I will emphasize it again, we need to be able to identify the allies that we have, because even in all the movements you can think of, even when it was racism abroad in America, when they were trying to fight racism, they had allies among the whites. So we cannot just think that, no, we don't need anybody, we have to be on our own, insult everybody that is in government, and let's just be fighting, even ourselves, let's fight ourselves. So this faction against this faction, no, we don't have a leader, and we think that we're going to get it right. I think we need to just wake up. We need to wake up and approach this from so many angles.
Absolutely. Milolo.
Well, they have pretty much touched on the critical part, which is strategy. It's not enough to just go out and talk. It's more important that we plan. One thing that I think our challenge is here, we still do not have a central coordinating point. There were people that were championing the cause, and they got a lot of attack post the protest, and some of them felt that it wasn't worth the energy and the trouble, and it made them pull back in terms of their own zeal and commitment. How we're going to nominate ourselves, I don't have it figured out right now.
That's why it's there, so you can ask him.
But we need to be able to, we have the social media platform, is one of the things that actually lend strength to the protest. A number of us were online protesters. I wouldn't say I step out on the street, but not that I wasn't with the protesters, but not everybody's going to get on the road. And some of us need to be able to find a better strategy around protesting.
So, Dovoe, she's asking the question.
So we need to find strategy to this madness, and we need to be able to make it sustainable. It was clear that funding wasn't going to be a problem, although the financing that was raised during the protest was sabotaged. There was a bit of freezing of the accounts and all of that. But we can get things going. We need to nominate ourselves. We need to find a group. We need to find a representation that is accountable. And there needs to be some measure of transparency in the process of consistent discussion and going back and forth, because that was why I took that what's in the news for me. The 5-point agenda, nothing has been done about it. There was nobody to go ahead and address it.
They ticked some boxes. But let Dovoe respond to that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, when I say the 5-point agenda, government claims that they have done one or two things.
Yeah.
They take like 2 or 3, if you listen to the president's speech last year, in terms of training, budgeting, welfare. But we know, I mean, that's just like a drop
in the ocean.
However, how do we translate all the energy, all the vibe that came with EndSARS being used nationwide? Remember, there were protests in the diaspora. In New York, the UK, I think even in Australia. And even some foreign celebrities and nations were looking at Nigeria and wondering, was this the tipping point? Were we going to see the evolution without the R, right? Now, what's her name? Uki. Like Uki said, I don't even call them conspiracy theories anymore. They are the lies that have been pumped in by the powers that be, by political parties, by our leadership, that your coming together will not work. Remember, we sing it all the time in our national anthem that, how do they say it? United we stand, divided we fall. Now, that is the basis of strength. Now, strength on its own does not give you the results. The bridge between it is participation. Participation will get you representation. That's the representation that she was referring to. If we are more than them, then how come we have not been getting the proper representation? It's because we have refused as youths to be part of the program. Government is not just a few people having a party. They are institutions. Now, what I want to see the youths do is beyond the EndSARS, beyond the agitation. Remember last time, exactly what we did during the EndSARS is what we need to do from an institutional point of view. There are legal and constitutional means of getting representation. Therefore, two things, and they're very simple. You don't have to become a politician. You either join a party. You have the APC, you have the PDP, you have the SDP. I mean, they trimmed them down from 90 to about, I think, 20 or 40, thereabouts. You can join any one of them. If they don't represent your interest and you feel the same bunch of old men and women who have recycled themselves over and over, then we can come together and form our own. It's free. You don't pay anything.
Because I was going to ask that, should we, in fact, I was going to pose that question to both of you, Uki and yourself, that should we as young people go into, infiltrate the existing political parties, or you think that since we are 75% of the population,
right,
can we not just decide to say we want to form our own political structure? I mean, because again, part of the agitations, or the conspiracies about Twitter, shutting down Twitter, was the fact that the CEO, Jack Dorsey, that's his name, I believe,
yes,
was going to create a platform and set up a political party that young people could go there to register and have like a political structure, yes, for the youth, right? So do you think that as it stands today, going forward, like we're looking for way forward, should we be thinking of a political structure that is unique to us as young people, or should we infiltrate the existing political? Uki is smiling. Go ahead.
Sure. Both are correct.
Okay.
Why? Because 5 fingers are not equal. We don't all come to the table with the same interest. You want okra, she wants egusi, she wants uha, I want chicken noodle soup.
Or what's supunka from my side?
So the thing is, like I said, you can join the current parties that exist. They're all individual structures of their own nature. Right now, you see this skirting around and moonwalking and backsliding from one party to the other. That's politicians at work. Like I said, if they don't serve your interest, then we also need to form our own. Now, it's not that difficult. What happened during the EndSARS? If you remember, messages were sent on WhatsApp, messages were sent on all the platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, even TikTok at that time. And what happened? The news went out, people came together. What was said? Don't be violent, come here, you will be fed. How were they fed? People were contributing into accounts, and then when they were snookered, they went into cryptocurrency. Can you remember?
Yeah.
The youths are always innovative enough to recreate themselves. Even when they sent hoodlums in our midst, what happened? At Alsa, in Abuja, in Lekki Tollgate, we formed and even hired security to protect us. So literally, that is governance. Now, do the same thing in an institutional manner, and you will begin to get this result that we're looking for. They were threatened simply because, for the first time, they saw the numbers come together.
Absolutely.
Why? Because politics is not logic. 1 + 1 is not 2 in politics. No. 1 + 1 in politics could be 0. Why? Because politics runs on consensus and numbers. Let me repeat myself. Politics is a game of consensus and numbers. So you're going to see strange bedfellows come together and say, well, I think we need to be on the same bed because there's this thing, there's an agenda we're looking for. You saw how the battle for electronic voting went.
Yes.
That overnight there was a U-turn. They haven't told us why they made the U-turn, but we'll find out in the future. Secondly, numbers. Your vote doesn't count. My vote doesn't count. It's a lie, literally, L-I-E. It is a lie. Why? Because if it didn't count, why do they spend those billions? Why do they go about giving people recharge cards and bags of rice, printing your name on this? Because they know it counts. And by the time, even if they don't bring electronic voting and count it in the current states that it's in, if you check the numbers, that's how people win. And what happens on that day? Here in Lagos, a few touts came out, or hoodlums, and scared over, how many registered voters were there? There were over 2 million. Ask yourself a question. How did 6 touts in Okota scare the whole of Lagos to stay at home? Something must be wrong. Because I know if all of us were out there, 6 touts would not have marred a whole Lagos election. And then a few people voted in one candidate and he won for nothing. We have to wake up. What I expected is the same EndSARS reaction and agitation to show up on election days.
Creating institutions. Uti. Uti is
She's
just
very quiet today.
Why are you quiet today? Don't dull my spirit. We are finding solutions here.
She's thinking and
Well,
processing
well
it.
Can I say something about
I
that
mean,
question?
really, I hear all these things.
Okay, you want to say something? Sorry.
Yes, I wanted something about, just what you said about whether to create a new political party or join existing political parties. My preference really, really is to say overwhelm existing parties. And it is very related to what he just said right now, because, people, they might not want you in the party. But if so many young people come in and you can give them, they can use you for leverage, and you also have power. There's nothing wrong with creating a new.
Oh, Sugar, we're having issues with her line.
Okay, it's like my kindred spirits. Maybe that's why our names are so similar. But again, usually I'm so vocal, right? So today I think I'm just tired. Because we sit here and we say the same things, we say it over and over again, we call it a different name, we say it a different way, and we still end up in the same place. So I hear you when you say, you gotta keep protesting. Here's the ingredients. Yeah, bake the cake. Yeah, well, please, when is the action going to start?
Yes, the actual, I'll say something to that, because a large portion of Nigerians, both local and diaspora, are frustrated. They're literally despondent. They don't believe anything is going to happen. But you see, that's why I like the EndSARS dates. You know why? Because for the first time, the pot started boiling. Before, what were we called? Lazy youths who were only interested in 120 million voting for big sister Nigeria. Okay? But the truth is, that same capacity, that same energy was translated with EndSARS last year. And I'm proud, I want to say that, I am proud of our youths. Those that came out today, despite the,
tyranny.
I am proud of them. I need to say this. They are the heroes who tomorrow, when posterity asks who came out to do something for us. Like I said, the protest is not the end of the journey.
It's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning. There's more to it. Some people have brought it to your awareness. Now, a few people need to take the steps. And the truth is, it really, really is the responsibility of the educated. So if it hasn't happened, it's because you and me haven't taken that step.
Actions.
I expect the masses are more illiterate. And yes, they form the voice, the protest presence, etc. But you and me, you need to find out in the days of Ironsi Njok. Have you heard, what's his name? Matama Suleiman speak before? Have you heard in the days of, what's his name, the first president of Nigeria? Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. Have you heard them speak before? You need to understand that this country was built on people who had been educated, who knew what they were doing. So if it hasn't happened, it's because you and me have been buying tickets to Canada and to Dubai instead of staying put here and getting our elbows dirty.
So here's my question for you. So this is what we always bandy around. When we finish, we say,
Yeah,
it's the elite.
Yeah,
Do something. I beg, plenty English. All these wonderful, funny things that you have said now. I agree with Uki. All we do when we create more parties is fragment, then it's pieces everywhere. Go and infiltrate the parties. But we still take for granted the system, and that's what I don't hear. We talk about these things all the time, but please, the machinery. We had, who was our guest who said there was a politician who had the boys, the protection, because violence is the order of the day. Because even when you go and say today, you and I want to be the elite and get up, and then the machinery and the system comes and says, we're going to squash it. Why did we take the decentralized approach? Because we didn't want anybody to hold on to it. All the noise that we made after EndSARS, in this ingredient where we say that protesting is only, or this recipe that we say that protesting is only the one, what is it that we're actual things? It's not enough to just point at me and say, you go and do something, you go and do something. So action points, what is it?
You saw, that's what I'm saying. They have lied to you. They have told you that if you put fire to the kettle, it will not boil. That's not true.
Which light? Fire to the kettle that you put a year ago. Where has the water boiled?
Good. That's my point. You see, the aggregation that we saw. Why do you think the federal government came heavily against Twitter?
The protest.
No, not the protest, Twitter. Did you think it was because you and me were gisting, hello, hi, what's up? No.
The power it has.
Twitter was about to give, I'm coming.
Okay.
You see, you need to connect the dots between what you feel is not happening and why the government takes heavy actions.
To prevent it.
If a platform literally kept the youths together, you would have had that force that you're saying could not act. What did they do? What happened to the Tower of Babel? They scattered it at some point so that they wouldn't get to where they were. What did they do when they see some people going out of line? They cut the head off. That's what they did to Boko Haram, Mohammed Yusuf, and what we're dealing with it till date. They've captured Nnamdi Kanu of IPOB, and till date we're still suffering it. Now, the point is this. There's no shortcut to it, okay? One party will join the existing, some groups will join the existing parties, and no matter how long it takes for them to push the reforms that we need, that's their business. Other parties may form a third force, so to speak, and until that is done, there is no way we're going to get these results.
Absolutely. You know what? Let me quickly come to Uki, because Uki was going to make a point before we actually ran out of time. So let's take some comments. This one says, no lesson learned. Our security men should be subjected to psychiatric evaluation. This is Lawman the Prophet from Umaiha, Abia State. Thank you for your comment. Uki, you were going to say something about the political parties, that we should overwhelm them. But I'm thinking, we did not water down the power that we have. You know, why can't we just be one force with one party? But quickly, because we're run out of time.
Okay, what I was going to say is that it might be difficult for us to have only one party, but if we're going to have any party that will be successful, we need some experienced people. We need some people that know how to win elections, some people that know how INEC works, because if we just go in there, all juvenile, all young people, let's go and take over, we might have the numbers, but we will not have the strategy, and you know, strategy will eat up numbers.
Absolutely. So
what I would say is either we all agree, overwhelm the parties, because they already have the people with the power, they have the people with everything, and if we go there and we take over, and I mean take over, so we determine the kind of candidate that comes up. If they are doing what their congresses where you have to get your candidates, their primaries, we know that we are the ones going to, once they see the numbers, I was saying before that these guys work with numbers. They have analysts, they want to win, so they're not just doing guess game anymore. Absolutely. So if they see our numbers and then we're speaking, the truth is it will be a mixed batch. Even if we go and form our own party, we will get youth that are just like the people we are fighting against.
Absolutely.
But somehow we just have to be enough and be
together.
Together and just say, look, let's just go. If we fail, we fail. Let's just move.
All right, quickly. Take our messages, then we move.
Taya says, hello, Ways Women. Minister Lai has the easiest job in the world. When he talks, he speaks his native language. Even the devil will be shocked that someone can outdo him through twisting the truth. Rishi.
Milola, quickly.
This is from Ade, and it says, good evening, ladies and gentlemen in the studio. EndSARS annual celebration is here to stay like COVID-19. This is Speak Out era, and government should listen to the peaceful protest of Nigerians, both home and abroad, to move Nigeria forward. These analog leaders should vacate to give room for digital. However, our vote will cast them out. Martin Luther King protested with Black Americans and conquered. God bless Nigeria.
Dovoe.
Last line. There's hope.
Okay.
It's not a hopeless situation.
I agree.
It's a journey. So we have made some progress. Pat yourself on the back and get ready for the next step to be taken. Hopefully within the next 1 year or 2 years, it's not going to be
We're bringing you back.
As many as possible. If you don't want to join a party, at least pick up a PVC.
Absolutely. Pick up and
participate.
Vote. Absolutely. All right, so thank you so much. If you missed today's quote, it's very important. I want you to hear that quote again. What's that quote again? If you missed today's quote, it's about corruption and injustice won't go away just because you make a lot of noise about it. We have to be strategic. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy.